Hi everyone, welcome back to the 5710 podcast, this week with Neil Gillespie from Reiach and Hall Architects. Neil is the Design Director at Reiach and Hall Architects and visiting professor here at Scott Sutherland School, where he leads Unit 3 in the Masters. The Edinburgh-based practice have received a number of national awards for their portfolio of work, including a remarkable list of Reiach and Reba awards. Their project Nucleus, the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority and Caithness Archive, won the Reiach Andrew Doolan Best Building in Scotland Award last week and was also nominated for the European Union Prize for Contemporary Architecture, the Mies van der Rohe Award for 2019. So welcome to the, I don't really need to say welcome because you're here every week, Neil.
No, it's a great pleasure.
But I assume it's been quite a busy past few weeks for you. Lots of award ceremonies and things.
Not so much, but no, it's always busy.
Yeah.
It's always busy. We're always, if we're not doing something, we're chasing something.
Yeah, exactly.
So life is always.
How do you balance that busyness in practice with coming here every week?
For me, being involved, university students is critical, really. So I've always done it. So, and the practice has always allowed me to do that, because that's a big commitment on behalf of the practice to let me take a day a week to come up. But I think what's really critical about it is it gives you another life, if you like. You know, if you're working with people day to day for over many years, you can get quite stale together. So I think to have another part of your life, architectural life, I mean, that is kind of unknown by the rest of the partners and directors and staff, that's good. And they themselves do the same thing. So quite a number of our staff are involved in teaching.
Yeah. So it's quite important to keep kind of a fresh mind.
Yeah, I think so, because I think we can start to repeat everything to each other and we can get a bit complacent and a bit repetitive. So it's good to get that. And working with students, you guys are always throwing things in our way to trip us up, so that's always really refreshing and good.
When you're with Unit 3, it seems to be quite a rural or peripheral focus. Is that because that's your own interest, or do you think it's important for Scottish architecture?
That's an interesting question. I think it was first in response to what the other units were doing. Yeah. So we were keen to create, at that time, what was that, 6-7 years ago, 3 units that had distinct characters. Yeah. So it seemed like an interesting thing to do. It was also quite pragmatic. You know, I was arriving, as you know, it's quite a busy day. Yeah. You've not got a great deal of time to get round everyone. So to use Aberdeen as a kind of focus was quite interesting. But I am interested in this, not so much the notion of Scotland. I'm interested in places and people that are remote from what we construe to be the centre. Of course, every place is a centre in its own right. So the idea of the periphery was kind of interesting. And now we're looking at Orkney at the moment. So we've moved off the mainland, if you like, to the Orkney mainland. So again, that's really just testing what that means. And I've always been interested in landscape, light, and a northern kind of condition. So we've been trying to do that because it seems to me that's what this school could offer.
Yeah, it's kind of its unique brand because it's furthest north.
It's furthest north, and I think the very interesting thing that's coming out of politicians and it's global warming and the whole notion of the north being opened up because of global warming. And that's interesting because that starts to turn the world, or Europe anyway, slightly on its head. Yeah. Where Scotland is still at the edge, but it's at the bottom edge as opposed to the top edge. So I'm interested in that. Yeah.
So as you've not only been nominated and won the Andrew Doolan Award, but you've been nominated 3 times for the Stirling Prize. Yeah. And you're one of the only, in recent years, Scottish firms that have been nominated. Do you think that's kind of a wider symptom of a London-biased view of architecture within the UK?
Oh, controversial question. I think we all have to come to terms with the fact that London is such a big metropolis that it is always going to be the focus for a lot of very talented architects. So it's not surprising that the majority of projects that are lauded, if that's the right word, are going to stem from there.
Yeah.
I think just the nature of London, it attracts really good people from all over the world, and I think that's the sadness of Brexit. What will that do to that energy? So it'll be interesting to see that. It's always difficult to sit quietly on the edge and be noticed, and I think we've benefited from gradual exposure, so that we're in a privileged position. If we do something now, a journalist might even come and have a look at it, whereas in the past they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I'm not trying to be overly modest, but I'm not saying that our work's getting better. It just maybe is more worth a visit, if that makes sense, because you've got some credentials. So it's kind of success breeds success, if you like, in a little bit.
Stepping on the last one to make the next one. Yeah, a little bit. Easy to see.
Inevitably, it's going to be a bit of that. Hopefully, we are getting better, but I'm not sure. That would be others to judge that one.
How do you see, especially after Brexit, do you think the architectural profession in the UK and Scotland will undergo a massive change, or will there be opportunities if Brexit happens or when it happens, or is it?
I mean, the short answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
And the short answer is I don't suppose anybody really knows. For me, the Brexit thing, the conversation is always about economy. It's always about freedom to open up markets. Whereas for me, the sadness is a breaking of cultural links. Yeah. Research, the ability for guys like yourselves to travel and to work somewhere easily. Presumably, don't know, but presumably all of those opportunities, or lots of them, are going to be closed. Yeah, well, that's a real sadness, isn't it? That culturally, that exchange that is quite easy could be difficult. So I think I'm sure architects and business will find a way of surviving no matter what the conditions are. That's the nature of us. We'll make it into a positive somehow. And so other markets will open up. But we've noticed, certainly in the bids that we do, huge amount of competition now from London practices. Yeah. We're obviously looking north.
South for the projects.
They're looking everywhere. Yeah. So that's going to be difficult, I think, for Scottish practices, because we don't have the portfolios to match the portfolios of large London practices. So we don't score on the marking.
When you're looking for students, especially as you are a visiting tutor, to hire out of uni, whether part 1 or part 2, what sort of thing, both personality and portfolio-wise, do you kind of focus on so that they come into your practice?
Right. It's been a while since we've been able to take anybody on, but what are we looking for? I mean, different people in the office will look for different things. Yeah. I'm kind of interested in people that have a bit of character. Their work has got something to say about them personally.
Kind of shows their personality.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I think it's really difficult for anybody really to be themselves. But I think it always comes across as you can understand authentic work, and then you can understand work that's been done to project people into a certain position. Yeah. There is no doubt, and there's no point beating about the bush, that inevitably when we are taking on young designers, young architects, we're looking for their presentation skills, their ability to draw and to work in whatever medium we have to make, whether it's a model or a computer model. Yeah. So inevitably you need some strength in that to be able to offer something immediately. And then gradually you gain the experience that gets transferred into more project-related work. So we're looking for people with skills in that direction, but people that have a bit of sense of themselves, a little bit of confidence, without being arrogant. Yeah. It's a balance, isn't it? Because there's nothing, you really want people to test things and use their initiative. So that's what we're looking for, I think.
So I've seen you talk before, and I thought it came across, and the people in Unit 3 that you tutor kind of agreed that you've said that it's quite important to be able to switch off from architecture and maybe take a break from it. which is maybe opposite to what we've been told by other tutors or architects in the past, that it's kind of always on their mind. Is that something that is that me reading into it too much? Or?
No, not at all. I mean, I think it sometimes comes as a surprise to people that architects are just human beings with families and mortgages and other interests. Architecture can be all-consuming. You know that even from your time here, and there is a danger in that you kind of lose track of what's going on in the world. And so I think being part of the world, I say this as somebody who gets totally involved in architecture and doesn't do anything else, but I kind of read a lot. Art is I've got a lot of artist friends rather than architect friends. And they kind of give me different perspectives on visual arts or culture or looking at the world. I used to enjoy going out and walking, skiing, all that sort of stuff. So I think it really is critical that people take time out just to be a human being. To go to the pub. And I suppose what happens is you inevitably, when you're doing that, you're observing all the time, but you're building up a resource of that's how people sit in a cafe. That's where people want to be. And I'm not saying that you're going to analyse every situation, but you end up doing that a little bit. But if you're not out in the world,
you're not getting that experience.
Listening to it, smelling it, enjoying it, And I think, after all, architecture is just about people, about housing people. So I think that's really critical, that people add other dimensions, whatever that might be. And I think they're really important. I kind of try and do that in the unit and say you've got to take time out. If it's a really nice day, go out for a walk. And it's a well-known fact that walking or another activity, your brain is still idling on that issue, and sitting staring at it sometimes doesn't do you any good.
Stuck in a rut.
So literature, I find great escape.
What's your favourite book?
I don't have a favourite book. Hundreds of books. I'm reading Brian Dillon, Other Essays, I think it's called, which I enjoy books that are not, I never read a novel, but I enjoy books that are fragmentary. It's almost like kind of thinking aloud. I enjoy where someone is just writing something as if it's just occurred to them. Enjoy it.
Like a stream of consciousness. You kind of get into their mindset.
You get into their mindset, and it just kind of opens you up, because that's kind of what we're doing. As we move through a building, it's kind of, and this happened. It's that episodic, powerful thing.
What's your kind of, when you maybe stuck in your job or in the unit, what's your kind of favourite memory to call back to from your career, either in uni or as a practicing architect? Kind of what's your favourite memory?
My favourite memory? Oh God.
Or a favourite story that...
Well, there's lots of favourite memories, I suppose, mostly to do with making something is an extraordinary thing, isn't it? When you experience something that you've drawn, that's amazing. But I mean, my highlight was organising a lecture of Alvaro Siza, and going to meet him in Porto, speaking with him, go and see. After having met him, going to have some lunch, a beer, and just thinking about it, and then he came to Edinburgh. But to see a guy of that calibre, as just a very human person who would spend time with someone like me, and just explain what he was doing, and just see that actually, just the thing we were talking about, being human is really important. And I think other cultures, Italians, Portuguese, Spanish, they're more comfortable in their shoes, I think. I think our northern folks kind of get stuck in this work ethic thing a little bit. So that was a great experience.
Final question, and we ask this of everybody. If you could recommend one building or city or both that a student of architecture should go to in a kind of grand tour that they might go on, what would it be?
Wow, there's so many. Grand tour. I mean, actually, I think a grand tour is maybe what I would recommend.
Okay.
I mean, I've been on, given myself a couple I wish I'd done more. One was a Carlo Scarpa, just searching out the Veneto, Scarpa, just wandering about, wife and I, hire a car. You find yourself in villages and towns that you wouldn't have gone to on the trip, and you see it in a relaxed way because you're with somebody who's maybe not an architect. So that Veneto thing, just because you've got Venice, you've got Verona, Vicenza, just fantastic. And the one I did not so long ago was a Swiss one, where you're trying to pick up Zumthor and Olgiati, but again you're moving into villages, you're moving in through a landscape. Going back to your initial question, I think the difficulty I have now, is visiting one-off buildings. I much prefer to just come across something. So I think you're right. I think a grand tour is more
suitable,
more interesting than saying go and see that building. Try and see the building or series of buildings in the context of a culture.
Get better understanding for the context and things like that.
From a distance you look at a building, what would it be? Take Zumthor's Zumthvik little chapel. You kind of go, what does that mean? How did that happen? The man's a genius. He is a genius. And then you arrive there, and there's no one there. And it's this tiny little wooden chapel on a hill next to a lot of wooden houses, and suddenly it all makes sense. You know what I mean? And I think that's the revelation. I think that it is a little building that's stained. There's water dripping down its external walls, the same as it's not an unbelievable thing. It's real. And I think so. That's the beauty of travelling, isn't it? You just see it's for real.
Exactly.
Well,
that was great. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking.
Fine. I hope you enjoy the lecture. And are you going back to Edinburgh tonight?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have a good journey back, as you do the journey every week.
Every week.
And thank you everyone for joining us. I'll put who's joining us next week in the description below. Thank you.